I'm Edward October. The sound you hear is of some weird cat looking over his shoulder at you and me. The sound of someone picking up every stitch. The sound of the rabbit running in the ditch. It's the sound of beatniks out to make it rich. Yes, it must be the season of the witch. This is the start of Octoberpod. It is now September, a rare month for boils and ghouls such as ourselves. The oppressive heaviness of August heat has dissipated to be replaced with the tang of leaves drying in a hot breeze before fluttering lifeless onto your front stoop. Halloween is just around the corner, and if you don't keep your wits about you, there'll be precious little time to assemble the hairy ape costume you wish to wear at the Harvest Festival, or to buy all the candy you want to hand out from your lovingly decorated trunk in the YMCA parking lot, or to perfect the recipes you'll serve at your fancy dress beer garden party. Halloween comes up on us fast, so it's wise to get a head start when you see early signs of the season coming on. This may seem silly to you, but one of my favorite rituals of the Halloween pre-season is going to the grocery store and buying one of those Halloween cooking and decorating magazines. You know the kind. Those thick special editions put out by periodicals like Better Homes or Southern Living. I know it may seem like an old grandma thing to do, but I eat that shit up. The spooky season is about more than just horror movies and bloody gore. It's about food and fun. It's about entertaining and costumes. It's about the drinkable variety of spirits. And, as Garfield would say, candy, 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 candy. And so on a warm, sunny day in late August or early September, nothing will get you in this cozy mode of the Halloween spirit quite like one of these magazines. You'll find them near the register of your local Acme, ShopRite, or Try and Save Mart, next to the 5-hour energy bars and adult coloring books on a rack where, in olden days, copies of rags like Weekly World News used to shout at you about the doings of Bat Boy or the alien conspiracy to put Bigfoot in the White House. Those were happier times. Next time you shell out $15 for a dozen eggs, pick up one of these bad boys. Martha Stewart Living used to come out with a special Halloween edition every year. Inside, you'd find decorating ideas, recipes, creepy cocktails, costume ideas, and even craft templates. I particularly liked the photo spreads of different theme party ideas. There'd be spreads for a carnival-themed kids' Halloween party, a rustic backyard harvest soiree, a cocktail party themed around creepy crawlies and moldy things. And with each theme party, you'd get games, decor ideas, recipes, the whole Megillah. Of course, I'd never pick up the Martha Stewart Living Halloween Special Edition with the intention of throwing one of these parties, but they'd serve as a great inspiration board for whatever event I was cooking up. I can't express how elegantly photographed the accompanying photo spreads were. These are the most fashionable Halloween parties you can imagine. Well, fashionable by your hip grandmother's standards. Halloween parties that express whatever the granny core aesthetic equivalent is for the Playboy lifestyle. Got some great charcuterie board ideas from the pages of one of those rags. Of course, that was the case a few years ago. In the last, 3 to 5 years or so, it seems like Martha has stopped doing her Halloween special. Instead, they do compilations of their old material. I know I have no room to talk with all the Crypt Clips compilations I produce for Octoberpod. And aside from being compilations of old material, The paper is lower quality. Gone are those thick, slick, glossy pages. Now the pages have the grainy texture of instant oatmeal and a muted matte finish to match. Of course, Martha Stewart isn't the only game in town. Better Homes and Gardens, Southern Living, and all the rest do something similar. And if you see one that looks good in the checkout aisle, pick it up. It'll make you happy. Or show you how to make a Halloween wreath with googly eyes and rubber snakes. Or whatever. But snatch them up while you can. At the stroke of midnight on October 1st, or even sooner, these will be replaced with Thanksgiving cooking and entertaining magazines or Shudder Christmas shit. Today, of course, we have a serious task at hand to kick off the start of spooky season. And so we've invited some special guests from some of our favorite true crime and paranormal podcasts who will whip you into a frenzy of ghoulish delight with some stranger-than-fiction true tales of the grotesque, the unknown, and the uncanny. First up, the classiest witches we know, Amber and Maddy from the podcast Witches Talking Tarot, present the facts and fantasy in the case of Jack the Ripper. Then Alecia and Sierra from the podcast Twisted and Uncorked have a strange, true case of UFOs and conspiracies in store for you. I'll be back in the intermission to talk about a few more of my favorite things to enjoy in these early days between the end of summer and the start of Halloween. I'll also be making a big announcement that you won't want to miss. Finally, Nikki Young from the podcast Serial Napper is on hand to lull you to sleep with the true tale of sex, Satanism, hauntings, and homicide. Well, let's get started now, shall we? Ladies?
Hi everyone, I'm Maddie.
And I'm Amber.
And we're
Witches Talking Tarot.
And today we're going to be talking about the creepy, the crawly Jack the Ripper. So, for those of you that don't know, Jack the Ripper is a notorious serial killer from 1888. 1888, yes. 1888.
August 7th, 1888 began the Whitechapel murders. And they ran at least through the end of 1888, although some murders in Whitechapel through 1891 were attributed to possibly being that of Jack the Ripper. They were similar in nature, but not exactly the same. There are 5 canonical victims I found out in this research. And those are the ones that I know of. And I thought they were the only victims. And the reason that a lot of people present them as the only victims is because it's not sure on some of the earlier ones and definitely on some of the later ones as to whether or not it was a Jack the Ripper murder or if it was just, unfortunately, a regular. But for me, Jack the Ripper gives very much Summer of Sam vibes. Everybody's terrified, everyone's afraid, women dyed their hair in 1969 to not be a Son of Sam victim, you know what I mean? And I get that very much from, Jack the Ripper, because, somebody, apparently, a famous quote around the Ripper murders is, social reformers couldn't do what Jack the Ripper did, which is get the people of London to acknowledge how bad it was in London's East End. Everybody was living in squalor. It was horrible conditions. And then things like the Ripper murders happened there. And, I found that quote very interesting because I saw that a lot in my research about how Jack the Ripper murders got the London elite to see how bad it was for the people that weren't the elites. Because, I guess up until that point, think we just, a couple months ago, we just did Scrooge, Right. He was a rich person in London, didn't give crap about all the lowly people. The work farms are good enough for them.
Right, and this would be around that same time Yeah, it was real shit.
It was bad.
It was really bad. It was so bad.
Well,
like, as in... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, dirty conditions. Everybody's hungry. Everybody's poor.
What's it called that starts with a D that you shit yourself and die? That's definitely...
Dysteria?
Dysteria?
Dysentery.
Dysentery was a thing.
Sorry, that took me a minute.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it was. But I mean, like, and you gotta think something that I didn't know, but I learned in my research for this. Most of these women weren't hardened sex workers. Most of these women were what were referred to back then as unfortunates. They didn't have a lot of money. They weren't able to make ends meet. A lot of them had drinking problems. And so the sex work came as a side just to fill in the gaps of what they really, like, the work that they really did through day-to-day labor and stuff. Like, one woman was a housekeeper where she lived. One woman made, like, flowers out of fabric and crocheted things for people for money.
Well, and
they were having their lady parts removed.
That brings me to a theory of who the serial killer is, which we were just talking about the possibility of it being a doctor. So I was looking at all the, like, different theories of who it is.
The Royal Surgeon.
I don't think that's who it was.
I know, but I love From Hell.
We can start with that one.
I love that one. I mean, that one's so much fun. It's the theory that because of an illegitimate child or a wedding that should not have happened between the crown prince and one of these unfortunate women, that, you know, the witnesses to said wedding had to be taken out. And, you know, we get that played out for us by I can't remember her name, but Johnny Depp's the dude, and if only he had leaned into that character, minus the opium usage, versus the pirate, he might have better teeth right now. But From Hell. Love From Hell. And that is where I learned about this theory of the royal surgeon or somebody in the royal family being the culprit, or somebody being paid by the royal family or told by the royal family, being the culprit of the Jack the Ripper killings to hide something that they didn't want the mass public to know about the royal family. It's my favorite. It's not the one I think, but it's my favorite.
So I think this Dr. John Williams is probably the one that I do think, because we were talking about the possibility of a doctor. Dr. John Williams was a celebrated doctor, surgeon, and teacher in the 1880s London. Williams, this is a different Williams. In 2005, Tony Williams, a descendant of Dr. Williams, published his book called Uncle Jack. But let me explain. Dr. Williams shadowed White Chapel. What?
Uncle Jack.
Oh, yeah?
Sorry, that was so good. I wasn't expecting that.
In the book, Williams claims that Dr. Williams shadowed Whitechapel looking for women he may have met at his clinic, okay? The claim was that he killed them and took their uteri back to the hospital to study in an attempt to cure his wife's, infertility. There's no proof of this, okay? This is just a theory. But to me, that theory makes sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Why doesn't it make sense?
Not many of these women had children. Why would he take their...
Well, to study their uterus. If they didn't have children, it's a possibility that they were also infertile. He couldn't very cut his wife open and check her out.
I guess in my head, I think you would want to look at healthy uterus versus
But you want to see
unhealthy
what's
uterus.
wrong
But I
with
get
it.
that.
You know
I
what
get
I'm
that.
saying? Yeah.
I mean, now some of them did have kids that I don't think were in their care. I hope were not, based on the things I read.
Maybe it was like he took both healthy and unhealthy because he wanted to compare the two.
Yeah.
You know, so
and that would make sense if you're taking, because I was just thinking off the bat of most of them didn't have kids, but there was one lady that had kids for sure, and I don't know about one of the others. A lot of them didn't have kids, which is why it was like, well, that's strange. But if you take women that, because also, what if there were other victims that weren't found?
Well, exactly, and if you take poor women that are what would probably be considered burdens to society back then, to study on. Unfortunately, if you look far enough, and again, unfortunately, it's not that far, many women who were considered burdens to society or undesirables were used in the history of gynecology.
Oh, absolutely. No, definitely. And I mean, that theory makes more sense to me than pretty much any of the others, even though I like the royal family retribution
I don't know. I like
theory.
the idea of it being
It's
a girl.
fun.
Of it being
I
a
do
woman.
like the one, because, like, they made good points. Like, a woman posing as a midwife can walk around London covered in blood.
Yep.
With bloody rags and, you know.
Or a midwife themselves would know about the inside.
Well, right. And that was what I was thinking. But, like, the theory from the detectives back then was that, you know, she was posing as a midwife. But a midwife would know where the organs are. And that's, like, my biggest thing is I feel like maybe a butcher of animals would be able to find the organs in a human. But otherwise, these women were butchered in that they weren't hacked to pieces, except for one or two of the earliest victims, which is why they're not really attributed to the 5 canonical victims, because they don't match the MO exactly. However, one of them was in the exact same position because they have their legs displayed as a woman giving childbirth, which feeds right into what you said about Dr. Williams and why. Because almost every single victim, her legs were splayed wide as if, and like possibly slightly bent. The way it was described was the position for giving childbirth. You know, so
which is why I'm like the doctor, like that guy. I'm like
that one makes perfect sense because I personally believe it has to be somebody with medical background or some such thing similar to that, because they were not just hacked to pieces, they were cut up and pieces of them were removed and taken with the killer. They had their throats slit, a lot of them, which is why nobody heard any noise. Like, most of these women were found where they were killed, which means they were killed and butchered, dismembered, dissected, however you want to look at that, in a specific place without being heard right outside a residence. Like, Whitechapel is, when you think about, like, okay, you know how San Francisco has the building upon building upon building, or like you think Brooklyn, the Bronx, or whatever, where it's like just building upon building upon building, all these apartments, all these little houses all together, squished together. This is what Whitechapel is like, right? It's a very poor area. And these women were killed like in doorways. And like one was found in like the landing of an apartment, basically. But like, you know, obviously it's not like our apartments. It's like apartments used to be. So it wasn't like enclosed, but it was probably like the stairwell was blocked off by walls of the buildings, you know? So it's kind of enclosed, but it's not like inside, right?
Right.
So it's like right outside the doors of residence, right on the other side of the wall from people like sleeping and just living life, right? At least one was found in the yard of a house. Like, and people were coming and going too, because this is a part of the town that, I'm not going to say it's like Vegas and it never sleeps, but also it you know, there are dock workers that are getting out at 3 and 4 in the morning. There are people there are soldiers that are on leave trying to get a little booty from women like our victims here, you know? It's a part of town it's still going in the wee hours when these women were dispatched. So like, there are at least 2 accounts where people went in and out of the buildings that these women were found dead in front of, and they're like, it was really dark. I mean, there was definitely nobody alive there, but I could have missed a dead body.
Well, and the reality is, though, it was such a shitty place. Would it be that unusual to see a dead body on the ground? I don't think so.
That was one. Well, not necessarily
or
a dead body.
drunk.
Exactly,
Or
a drunk or a passed out, because that's exactly what one guy said about one of the bodies. Was like, I think I saw a body there, but like I often see somebody sleeping there. 1888 was a cold, wet summer. So the bank holiday that the first Jack the Ripper murder happened at, like, it was so wet, nobody could go out and do stuff. Everybody wound up in pubs drinking and stuff, because like, it was like, there were newspaper images, like people drew like cartoons of people like rowing through the streets of London because there was that much rain.
And
in
okay.
this, and that's
And
directly
this is
leading
East
up
End,
to
right?
this.
Oh my
Still
God,
not
listen to
generally
this.
hailed as a good place to be.
Lewis Carroll
Is
was
one of the possible suspects.
the author of Alice in Wonderland.
Same with a known serial killer, George Burroughs, I think is his name. But he was a known serial killer.
I hear the author of Alice in Wonderland was a fucking weirdo, though. Like, I hear he was a straight up creepoid.
Because he was he a
naked
creep?
pictures of little girls.
He had naked pictures.
Yes,
of girls?
he would draw them himself. So, like, I only know this because I had looked up this author. He would draw them himself, and their mothers would let him keep them for a little bit while he drew these pictures of her because it was art. Like, the guy was definitely like on the P side of the.
Maybe I'm thinking of the Winnie the Pooh guy.
Maybe. Because Lewis.
Because one of the children's authors that was thought to be like creepy.
I may be wrong, so don't.
She
quote
was a
me.
girl he knew.
But she was a yes.
Anyway.
Anyway.
But, yeah. So there are a lot of there are a lot of famous people that were thought to be Jack the Ripper.
Well,
there
this
were
one's like
other
a Hollywood
killers who were thought to be Jack the Ripper.
Mm-hmm.
There was a woman who was possibly Jack the Ripper.
Nobody knew. Nobody had any idea.
Nobody did.
Back in the olden days when you could get away with stuff. Like, nowadays, not unfortunately, I mean fortunately.
Well, nowadays we have DNA evidence, which everybody thinks is infallible, but it is not if you watch enough true crime like I do.
I guess that brings us to the
Current
final.
Era.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean.
He's not. I meant the final for this episode. But like, anyway, so the guy, just because we're at 25. But so his name's like Aaron something, Polish Jewish immigrant. He came from Germany, came to London. He was a barber. Supposedly they connected.
He was insane.
Yes, he was insane.
And he
died
wound up in a mental hospital in 1891 where he ended up dying like 20 plus 30 years later.
Which sucks because mental institutions back then were not good.
And his relative, who is writing a book about Jack the Ripper and his great uncle being Jack the Ripper, released a shawl that is thought to be Catherine Eddowes's that has her DNA and mitochondrial DNA from the Kosminski family. And Aaron Kosminski was one of the suspects back in the day. And so the DNA evidence shows that Kosminski's mitochondrial DNA is on a shawl that also has Catherine Eddowes' DNA, according to the labs that tested it. But what everybody doesn't realize about DNA is it's not 100% accurate. Like, there are scientists that would say DNA should not be allowed in a court of law today on current era DNA samples. So
honestly,
it's over 100 years old. And DNA breaks down. Like, I find it highly suspect. I mean, maybe they did solve Jack the Ripper. Maybe they really did. But I'm not sold because it's just mitochondrial DNA. She was a lady of the evening that he was known to experience, and so were his brothers, according to what I read when we were talking about it earlier, and I looked it up to see, like, is somebody profiting from the fact that this is happening? The DNA, that is. But what I read said, like, he and his brothers both experienced the embrace of Catherine Eddowes, so it makes sense their DNA would be on the shawl.
So I'm not going to dismiss the fact, okay?
Yeah,
I'm not going to dismiss it at all. I'm not going to say that I fully believe it because I don't, but I'm not going to like die on this hill that I think it's not this person.
Oh yeah, no.
You know, like the idea of him being a barber again, like we got Sweeney Todd, man. We got Sweeney Todd, like
another Johnny Depp.
Literally,
again, another Johnny Depp. If he leaned into that character, would have better teeth today.
I'm just saying, like, isn't that how Sweeney Todd, you know, his victims?
But Sweeney Todd didn't like dissect them and cut their organs out.
He just fed them to people. He just ground.
Well, he just gave them to
Mrs. Lovett.
so that she could grind them up.
But the thing is,
And I
we
mean-
don't know anything about the history of Aaron before he moved to London. Like you had mentioned previously, did they own a farm? It's highly possible if they owned a farm that he had to perform emergency C-sections on animals. Does that mean the mom's gonna live? No, but we are gonna save a calf instead of losing a cow and the calf. Pigs are very similar to humans as well. You could have
Yeah.
or he could have been a
if
straight
you
psychopath
are, you know,
and just cutting
straight,
into
like,
them.
but he didn't just cut it.
No, I'm talking about the animals.
Oh, the
so
animals.
he
He
learned
about
something
that.
about that, you know?
I mean, like, in his mental state, he was this far away from a mental hospital stay. Can you really dissect a human body in the dark without being caught by all the people right around you?
So there's this theory.
I find that highly suspect.
There's
as
another
well.
theory. I do think so, absolutely. If you are so fucking insane, I really do think so.
No, I don't think you're going to have steady enough hands to do the cuts.
Well, see, that's where I disagree, because, like, there is a theory that people with mental health disorders, people who have these issues, you know, they kind of almost convince themselves. And so when they're convincing themselves that, like, what they're doing is not bad, they're not shaken, they're not scared.
Oh, but
you know what I mean?
It's that when you have a neurological issue, like mental health issues and mind issues, are your hands going to be steady enough to make surgical incisions in the dark? What if it's somebody that's got medical knowledge, but they're not somebody like a soldier that also has medical
exactly.
knowledge,
It could have been
and they would
someone
blend in
war.
down there because soldiers go in there all the time. I'm just like, it couldn't be like a rich guy, right? Because how are you going to blend in down there?
Mhm.
You're going to stand out like a sore thumb. Now, 2 of them were seen talking to a dude with a little mustache, though, who apparently did not blend in at all. And it's like, I don't know. Because of all the true crime I've watched,
Mhm.
DNA evidence is not that, it's not how people think it is,
Mhm.
right? Where it's like, oh, we're going to bring DNA evidence into this courtroom and everything's going to be solved. Like, that's not how it is, according to the scientists that perform DNA stuff. So for 140-year-old DNA to say that this guy did it based on mitochondrial DNA and his brothers, who would have had the same mitochondrial DNA, being there, and he was a known visitor of these ladies.
Maybe.
The DNA does not sway me. It doesn't. If nobody would profit from it, it would sway me a lot more, and I realize that's my own bias. 100% my own bias. If nobody was profiting from that DNA release, I would for sure find it more interesting than I do. It's not that I don't find it
Capitalism.
credible. It's that I find it disinteresting because I know that DNA is not foolproof. It's only mitochondrial, and somebody is profiting from it being released after 140 years.
If the story you just heard unsettled you, don't worry. All that means is that you're still sane. Let's hope your grip on sanity holds after you listen to our next story.
I'm Alecia.
And I'm Sierra, and this is Twisted and Uncorked. Hello and welcome. We don't always induce fear, but today we likely will, as I will be telling you about an alien conspiracy. In 1978, 26-year-old Jim Weiner fell at his home. Listen, get it out, because the word wiener, penis, testicles, it's gonna be said a lot tonight.
Okay. You can't just brush over and because it made me think of that episode of Friends when Rachel's like wiener on the phone after her pediatrician kicks them off, like fires them because she keeps calling like a crazy person. Sorry, that's where my brain went. As you continue.
26-year-old Jim Weiner fell at his home and sustained brain damage. He recovered from this incident, but ever since then, he had been experiencing strange aches, pains, and nightmares. He probably needed a sweet dreams mocktail.
Yeah, I'm really hoping this will mean I don't have nightmares tonight. Here's hoping.
He felt sick to his stomach at random times, would have chest pains, side pains, and numbness, and vivid nightmares that he felt were more real than normal dreams. He had been going to many doctors, including a doctor at the Harvard University Medical School Department of Neurology and a neuroepilepsy nurse specialist at Beth Israel Hospital in Boston. Jim was diagnosed with temporolimbic epilepsy, which has symptoms that include deja vu, dissociative states with out-of-body experiences, panic attacks, chest pains, and hallucinations. However, at least the two doctors that I just mentioned do not believe that TLE is the only thing responsible for the nightmares that Jim had expressed to them. Before even hearing that he had once seen a UFO, his doctors suggested that he go to a MUFON event, Mutual UFO Network, and ask for advice from a ufologist. And so he went to a symposium and met Ray Fowler. Talking to ufologist Ray Fowler brought up memories for Jim that he didn't realize he had. Eventually, Jim and the friends who had that UFO sighting with him underwent hypnosis to uncover the things that they had suppressed in their minds. It's important to know that none of them remembered these things before hypnosis, and that they claimed and promised not to speak to each other in between hypnosis sessions so that one friend could not poison the other's minds. First, let's meet our victims. Jim and Jack Weiner are identical twins, brothers who were born in October of 1952 in Pennsylvania. They were movie-typical twins who did everything together, liked all the same things, invented their own language, and felt that they had twin telepathy. They enjoyed the outdoors as kids, with strict but loving parents who, quote, provided the most loving environment possible, end quote.
Oh.
However, they did live in a seemingly haunted house.
There it is.
Jack and Jim mentioned Harry the Ghost somewhat nonchalantly during their discussion with Ray. When asked to explain further, Jim said that he would hear voices at night and hear weird music that sounded like a drum beating slowly. He also thought he could hear someone calling out his name and knocking on the walls.
Absolutely not.
Jack said his first interaction with Harry the Ghost was when he, a scary-looking monster, was floating next to Jack's bed and eventually pulled the covers down to look at 5-year-old Jack before vanishing into thin air. He remembered wanting to scream but not being able to. Okay, I have to pause right here because the entire time I read this book, I just kept thinking, something similar has happened to me. This is bringing up a memory for me.
Sierra!
I think this happened to me. So, I have always remembered this. None of my parents, like, every time I say it, they're like, oh, you were just being dramatic or whatever. I used to think that something was pulling the covers off my blankets. We made an entire thing of it. We used to say that a man and a woman lived in the house we lived in with a dog, and the man hung himself. There was this arch in our house. We were like, the man hung himself right there, and the dog died too, and then the woman died of heartbreak. None of that happened. None of that. That was just a story we made up to explain, I don't know, whatever we thought was happening. We used to say that the dog was biting the blanket and pulling it off of us at night. But I don't know if that actually happened or if that's just what I remember because we were little kids talking crap. Like, I don't know, but this freaked me out, okay? I might interject like this a couple times because there's a couple things that I'm like, wait a minute, this sounds familiar to me.
Welcome to Sierra's childhood trauma. Oh my god.
I think I need hypnosis. Also, don't want it. Don't want it, okay?
I need it, but I don't want to know. I don't want to know. No, thank you. I don't think
I've been drinking tart cherry juice for a week, okay?
Depending on what your findings are, I don't know if I want to know.
In other instances, Jack also remembered hearing the knocking, the voices, and even footsteps. He said that his feet would be grabbed, his covers pulled, doors would open and close on their own, Electronics would go on or off, and objects would move on their own. At first, the twins said, their parents would just comfort them and say it was a bad dream. Eventually, though, their mom would say something like, oh, it's just Harry the ghost again. He will go away. They slept in their mom's bed for a long time because they were scared at night. Guess who slept in her mom's bed until I was in 6th grade? Why the did I do that?
Aww.
6th grade.
Yeah, that's
Why?
pretty late. My
That's
dad
really late.
got
People
fed
make
up
fun of
when
me
I was
all the
9.
time.
Oh.
Every time I say it, I'm like, I know I'm weird. Like, that's why I don't sleep good in a bed by myself at all, ever anymore.
Yeah.
Even after that, me and my sister shared a bed until I graduated high school. Like, not even kidding. I always need to be touching another person when I'm sleeping. Like, if Jesse doesn't come home or is out of town or whatever, I sleep with the kids.
So
I tell them, come get in my bed.
So if you come visit me ever, am I just gonna have to get like a bunch of squishmallows ready?
Yes.
Just build a body for you.
Yeah.
Oh.
But why?
I don't
this
sleep
some
well by myself either.
Deep-rooted stuff in my brain? Like, what the fuck?
Maybe you have undealt with trauma because you were like peeked at by a floating alien person.
Oh my god, it gets so much worse than being peeked at. Okay.
Yeah, that
Let's
was already
continue.
creepy. No, I don't want to. I'm scared. I don't want to not like aliens.
The ufologist asked the twins' mother about Harry, and she confirmed the events and even claimed to see a ghost who was humanoid, glowingly white in a long robe, and seemed to float right out of their closed door after being spotted by her and her husband in their bedroom.
Gross.
Crazy. And she was Catholic. And she was like, oh yeah, I saw that fucking ghost.
Yeah, she's like, oh yeah, sure. It's a normal night here at our house. Happens all the time.
The twins stopped seeing Harry the ghost at age 15 when Jack's final paranormal experience occurred. A glowing yellow orb of light floated right into his kitchen window where he was, past him, through the house, and then out another window.
Okay.
Harry the ghost wasn't the only paranormal thing that the twins experienced as kids, though. Jim had experienced at least one lost time instance as a child that he could remember. He was sledding out on a hill and specifically remembered leaving as soon as the sun started to set, because he knew he would be in trouble if he wasn't home for dinner. But somehow he was still very late. Another weird, maybe paranormal thing that Jim recalled from childhood was actually something he couldn't remember. His whole family remembered the time that he went missing when he was young. He had been outside playing in the snow and fell into a utility hole of some kind, where he was eventually found almost frozen to death. Maybe his brain blocked it out because it was too traumatic, but he says he cannot remember it no matter how hard he tries.
Oh.
After Catholic grade school and public high school, the twins went on to college, Jim at Mansfield State College and Jack at Massachusetts College of Art, where he met friends Chuck and Charlie, who would, of course, be Jim's friends as well. Chuck Rack was born in January of 1949 to a wealthy family in Massachusetts. His dad, though, was abusive, and his mom was an alcoholic. Because of the wealth and likely the guilt, Chuck's dad took him to extravagant places as a teen like England and Germany and Italy. It's Chuck from Gossip Girl. Chuck also seemed to have a bit of a paranormal childhood, though not nearly as active as the twins. He only remembered the scary encounters from the ages of 4 to 6. He said he would feel a presence in his room at night sometimes, and thought he'd see little people that were all white. He didn't know what they were doing in his room, but he'd just go and sleep with his parents when he got scared. He also had a curious experience with a MUFON investigator at the age of 25 in 1974. He was in Vermont that year during a snowstorm when he saw a man covered in blood walking down the side of the road. He took the dazed man to the hospital where he made a full recovery, and Chuck checked in on him at the hospital for a time. That is when he learned that the man was a MUFON investigator and was in the area investigating a strange occurrence at a farm with crop circles and men in black. But that's a whole nother episode for another day. Okay. This guy crashed his car. That's why he was bloody. He's fine.
But definitely unsettling timing. For sure. Like, thanks. Can't you see that we're going through some shit right now?
Yeah.
Oh, could you not have crashed your car next Tuesday?
Our final victim is Charlie. Charlie Fultz was born in January of 1950 in Pennsylvania, but was raised on a farm in Ohio. He had a happy, mundane childhood working on the farm with his dad, and then working on water pumps for the community with his dad. When he was old enough, he joined the Navy for a 4-year stint disposing of radioactive waste from the military's nuclear program. Charlie never experienced anything paranormal in his life until the incident that we are going to talk about today. But he did once see something that he thought might have been a UFO while he was in the Navy. It was during a classified mission, so he couldn't give much information away, but it was in 1970 near Spain. He and the other crew saw a glowing orb-type thing hovering over them for a while before taking off as if it were just observing for a bit. Alright, so now let's get into the incident at hand. The ALLAGASH incident. Jack, Jim, Chuck, and Charlie planned a camping trip to the ALLAGASH in Maine in 1976. The trip was for multiple days of camping, as well as hiking, canoeing, and fishing for their food during the trip. They drove all through the night Friday the 20th to get started on their adventure on Saturday. The trip started out great. They recuperated Saturday, hiked all day Sunday. Tuesday night, the 4 friends, along with many other campers, were at the campsite and noticed a strange ball of light in the sky. It was so bright, there for just a minute, and then blinked out of sight. Everyone at the campsite, including strangers, seemed to be mesmerized by the ridiculously bright light while it was there, pointing at it and talking about it. But once it was gone, everyone went about their night, assuming it must have been a planet that was visible for just a bit, like sometimes they are. This was fact-checked later on, though, and it was most likely not a planet. There was a planet that was scheduled to be visible that night, but not that bright and not at the time that these 4 and the other campers reported seeing that light. So, weird. Anyway, the next day was Wednesday, and the weather had turned bad. It rained all day long and allowed them to just relax at the campsite. But they wanted to stick to their itinerary and were a bit stressed that they couldn't canoe out to their next fishing hole. Thursday, the 26th, was sunny and beautiful, so they headed out early. They needed fish this day to replenish their storage, but they weren't having any luck catching anything. Thursday night, they decided to try their luck at night fishing. Out in the wilderness, surrounded by black waters at night would be dangerous, though. So they made a huge fire, probably bigger than they should have if they were being forest fire safe, but big enough that they would know the way back to their campsite when they were done fishing. All 4 of them piled into just one canoe for this excursion as well, because safety in numbers. While trying to find a spot out on the water, they saw that big ball of light again, the one from Tuesday. The moon was new, with only 2% visibility on this day, so it couldn't have been the moon, which is something I researched myself, because I was like, is it the moon, though? It's not.
I mean...
So Chuck saw the light first, and he was immediately transfixed by it. He said it was like a pulsating fluid or plasma all around the sphere, changing colors from red to green to yellow, cool, hovering motionless and without sound. Ugh. Eventually, the others turned and noticed as well, saying it was about the size of a house. Charlie, the military man, held the large flashlight for the group, and decided to signal at the thing. And then suddenly it began coming straight towards them, turning on a beam of light that emanated from the bottom of the of the sphere like a triangle all the way to the water. The twins and Charlie were terrified and began paddling, the twins with just their arms, as fast as they could towards their fire on shore. Chuck, though, was still transfixed. In what seemed like a literal blink of an eye, the canoe was at shore, and the men were watching the weird ball of light float away until it blinked out, just like the thing from Tuesday. Did you giggle because of Blink-182?
Yeah.
I am not doing any of this on purpose. Blink-182 was not in my notes. Not even a
when
little
you said
bit.
it the second time, I was like, she's doing this on purpose.
Not at all.
Find another adjective. No, your stories are always wonderful, but I'm just like, that has to actually, you know what? I've noticed a lot of serendipity though, and stuff that we talk about on the sides and stuff that it just works. It's fine.
It does. The four friends, now at shore, were very calm and very exhausted, maybe in shock. They noticed that the fire was pretty much out, which was weird considering they had been on the water for only like 30 minutes, but they just wanted to sleep and didn't talk about it again. Until 12 years later, when Jim found Ray Fowler at the convention and convinced his friend to let Ray investigate what was happening in his nightmares, and if it was related to their sighting. Spoiler alert, it was. So this is another thing that I have told you guys before, that I'm pretty sure I had a UFO sighting, but every time I tell it, I realize in the moment and even say like, we just didn't talk about it after that. I don't know. Why did we not talk about it after? Like, what the fuck happened?
It's not a normal drive, so
like, we weren't even driving, we were walking.
No, I was talking about when you were with Jesse and that big shadow came over you guys.
Oh yeah, no, that one we talked about. No, me and my friend, when we saw the thing that was possibly a flying
car. We're doing
car.
Adderall.
Yeah. Listen, okay, for some reason, we're just like, oh, that just happened. Okay, let's pretend like it didn't and never talked about it again.
I mean, I can't say I blame you. Like, otherwise you have to process it.
Or keep listening.
Oh no!
All right. So let's talk about their hypnosis sessions. Each friend underwent hypnosis separately and without the others present. Some of them underwent more than one session. Chuck's session was the shortest. Remember, he was the one who claimed to be mesmerized in the canoe. But the author of this book later characterized Chuck as a macho man type. And I think that sums it up perfectly. Even under hypnosis, when he's talking about everything that happened, he seemed to me to be very matter of fact. This is what happened. I don't have any feelings about it. Charlie, on the other hand, was very nervous for his session and even during his session. He told what he remembered, but he did it with a lot of metaphors, kind of like he was disassociating in a way that would make it more sensible. Jack and Jim, though, they went all in. All the way relaxed, all the way opened up. After piecing together what happened from each individual account I read from the book, this is the gist, okay? This is a very long book. I'm not going to read every single person's.
I don't know if I want to read. Well, you told me I have to read the book.
Look at my...
Oh shit!
There's a lot.
Book, yeah, the book ASMR sticky note edition.
Sticky note edition.
I will read it. I will definitely read it. Maybe I'll steal it from you next time I see you. I
at least read my notes. I made like little scared, sad faces on a bunch of spots because I was like, I don't want to read this.
You need to keep that book.
Listen.
That's so funny.
In one of these,
that needs
in one
to
of
be
the notes,
embossed.
I literally wrote, where is it? I don't know how far I got into the book, but in one of these notes, there it is. I just saw it. Oh, that's not it either. Anyway, in one of these spots, I wrote, was I abducted? Like, what the So,
no, I'm excited.
Anyway,
I'm excited. I'll read the page and then be like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll check that out. Yeah, I'm renting that one from the Library of Sierra. I don't want the generic version.
Yes, you have to get the annotated one with all the scared sad faces.
Oh. That's cute.
They're everywhere. They're
That's
all
really
over.
cute.
I have a bunch of underlines, but when I was like, this entire paragraph scares me, I just put a scared sad face. I'm like, oh my god.
That's pretty accurate. Your face just made the accurate face for that.
The four friends went onto the water to fish, but before they even started, they saw the UFO. Then they signaled it. It shot down a beam, and they started paddling as fast as they could away from it. After hypnosis, they finally remembered they did not escape that beam. It encapsulated them in its light. They all described this as like a tube or a tunnel, but being inside of it was different for each of them. Chuck said that he was getting
I know I
drawn.
look ridiculous with my headphones on, but
Oh yeah,
I'm scared.
you should be. Chuck said that he was getting drawn up towards the ball, but couldn't explain how. Jim said he didn't like the feeling of being in the tube. It looked like it was moving, like when you blow smoke into light and it reflects it.
Oh, yeah. That's a very good descriptor. Well done, sir. I picture that immediately.
Charlie described basically being beamed up, saying that he could see the canoe still on the water way down below him.
Absolutely not.
Jack said that the tube was like glass, but not glass, and that it made him feel funny and come apart. Quote, I'm screaming, and my eyes are open real wide, and my mouth is open real wide, and my tongue is sticking out, and my ears are coming off, and I feel like I'm thick. I feel like I'm thick. End quote.
I don't like that.
No, I don't like any of this. I thought I liked aliens. I thought we were friends.
When I say I feel like I'm sick, it's like I'm having a bloaty day. Not whatever this shit
Not
is.
whatever this is. Once they were up on the UFO, the four men felt paralyzed, but were, one at a time, inspected by the beings who inhabited it. They all four described the beings in almost the same way. Humanoid, with arms and legs, big heads, small necks, four fingers that were kind of claw machine-like, sheen, full-body suits. They had large black eyes that were described as being bug-like or almond-shaped, dark or black or the shiny color of a beetle.
Hate that.
They had no eyelids, but some inner membrane thing that sort of came together in a blinking motion like frogs or birds.
I hate that the most.
They said either there were no ears or just holes for ears or just small little bumps. No nose or small bump, as a nose or small holes for a nose. And no mouth.
Voldemort? Like a beetle-colored Voldemort? Like, this is terrifying.
And no mouth or just a slit line as a mouth like a turtle.
Ugh. Every part of that
It's basically
description I would have
this.
just black. No! I don't want to see. No.
This wasn't their drawing, but I mean, basically.
That's basically. You gotta send me a picture of that for.
Oh, I'll show you all of their drawings if you want it.
You gotta send me pictures for the post. Ugh. Hate it.
Yeah, all of them are creepy. They all
It
drew
looked
their
really
own version.
mad.
Yes.
No. And terrify the rest of our listeners.
They said the beings didn't ever talk to each other, but did make head-moving and hand-moving gestures that seems like they were talking and understanding each other. They also said that even though the beings never talked to them, they did things that the beings wanted them to do, including forgetting all of this, because they just really felt like the beings wanted them to do certain things, and if they didn't, it would be bad.
Okay.
One of the things the beings wanted them to do, one by one, was get undressed, completely naked.
Why are they so pervy and, like, interested in the human body?
Quote, they made me take it off. I just got the impression that if I didn't do that, I was going to be in trouble. End quote. All four men remembered getting undressed and seeing each other get undressed. They also remembered, as they got undressed and then inspected, the other three just sat on a bench and didn't help. But they also remember being on the bench and feeling paralyzed and not being able to help.
Okay. That's sad.
So, like, at first they're like, why aren't my friends helping me? And then they're like, oh, wait, now I'm sitting down and I can't help. I want to help, but I can't help.
Yeah. I don't like that. That's like sleep paralysis. Like,
Yes.
you're awake, but you can't.
Drink your sweet dreams.
Ugh,
Don't wake up.
me.
Don't wake up tonight.
I hope I don't. No, thank you.
Jack said that they lifted his head up by the chin really far and inspected his neck. When the being touched his wrist, he said it felt like caterpillars. It doesn't get better. It doesn't get better. They lifted his arm up and inspected it. They used some sort of metal rod to scrape and scoop under his arms, the backs of his knees and his calves, and between his thighs. Then they walked him over to a machine that seemed like it was in a doctor's office. The machine was over top of Jack, sort of like a tray just above his chest, which meant that he couldn't really see what was happening to the lower part of his body.
Yeah,
but
that's
he
great.
could feel it. Quote, they're touching my penis. They put something on it. I can feel it. It's going in. I don't like it. I'm peeing. I can't stop. It's hurting. End quote.
Put a catheter in him, that poor man. Oh.
Next, he stood up again and felt that the beings were telling him everything would be okay. Quote, in Jim's hypnosis session, he said that the beings seemed interested in the fact that he and Jack looked exactly alike. He also remembered watching these things happen to his brother Jack. So, like, first one of them was questioned, and then the other one was, and the other one, not questioned, but under hypnosis.
Yeah.
The other one would say, I saw this and this and this happen to him. When he just said, I saw this and this and this happen to me. You know what I mean? Like, they're corroborating.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Most of what happened to Jack happened to Jim as well. The same things with the arms. Then they inspected his genitals. The hypnotist asked Jim what it felt like when the beings touched him, and Jim said, like bugs. Ugh. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Anything involving bugs, I'm immediately out. That they have beetle-like skin, I hate it.
It's disgusting. And if you think about the representation of a giant alien head on a skinny neck, it's kind of like an ant.
It is.
It's like a bug. They're like bugs.
I'm gonna vomit.
It's disgusting. I'm sorry, aliens, I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm not. Maybe you're assholes.
Yeah, well, you're non-consenting butt putting up things right now. I'm so frazzled. Also, like, what probing stories do we ever hear that's, like, consensual, but also...
Yeah.
Yeah, Stanley doesn't like it either, guys.
I know, he won't shut up. So, Jim wasn't compliant at first, and he said that the beings poked him in his ribs when he didn't listen. Okay, but I just want to point out that this is happening in 1976. Jim did not have his fall, which caused TLE, until 2 years later in 1978. And then 2 years after that is when he started dreaming about weird things. So, this is not this is all a hallucination because you have TLE. He didn't fall for 2 more years.
No, I think he had repressed trauma that
after his fall resurfaced.
Yeah.
He did let slip during his hypnosis that he believes he was visited again in 1980. But we'll get to that in a little bit. First, we need to talk about what happened to Chuck and Charlie.
Oh, do we have to?
There's horrible. 4 of them.
It was horrible. I'm so sorry for you.
It is horrible. When it was Charlie's turn for hypnosis, it was hard for him to remember much because he was scared in the actual moment. He remembered not wanting to open his eyes while he was being observed by the beings in the UFO. Thankfully, he did at least a few times, and the hypnotist was able to get a lot out of those times, as well as his feelings. He remembered seeing the examination of both Jack and Jim, and then after much deep, deep relaxation, he finally remembered being examined himself. He said the beings took skin samples, swabbed his mouth, took blood from his neck, took urine, feces, hair, fingernail and toenail clippings. He said they scraped the insides of his thighs and his groin.
I mean, this is an uncomfortable thing in a medical setting as it is.
Yeah.
But this is non-consensual. You're not knowing what's happening, and it's like bug-like people. Like,
Yeah.
This is awful.
Like f***ing monsters.
Awful. Ugh.
Again with the bugs. Why do they all mention bugs?
Because that's like the only thing as humans we have that's similar enough to like...
But the thing that freaks me out is if they're all mentioning it, it's gotta be true. Aliens feel like bugs. That's gross.
Well, maybe
don't
not
like
all aliens, so, right? Like, you gotta think of, like, different
Give me the ocean aliens.
Right? The ones that look like they're wearing wetsuits? I'll take those.
Yeah. The ones that are probably octopuses.
The ones that are scale-free.
You read Remarkably Bright Creatures, right?
No, not yet.
Oh my god.
It's cute. I want to read it.
It is so cute. And if aliens are like that, that's what I want.
Can
Anyway.
I put my vote in on what type of alien abducts me? Thanks so much.
Please. Chuck then remembers being taken to the bench and watching all of his friends have things done to them that they've already described. Chuck must have been the first one to be examined. After the examinations are over, they remember being escorted back toward the tube thing, and then going through it and being back in the canoe, which was now near the edge of the shore. The beings told each of them not to remember the incidents that had just occurred, and that seems to be why they didn't discuss it when they got back. Also, the fire they had built was almost out because they had been inside the UFO for hours.
Yeah.
Also,
Like full body examinations, but in one spot.
yeah. During the hypnosis sessions, the hypnotist asked leading questions at the end in order to know where to take the questioning to next time. They asked Chuck if he had ever seen the entities before, and this is how we learned of his childhood quote-unquote ghost that I explained earlier. Not a ghost, after all.
That's somehow worse to know that they can float over you like that.
Yeah.
I'm out on every single part of this.
It still gets worse, if you
Oh
can believe it.
my god! Here.
Jim's paranormal events were also examined deeper under hypnosis. He was able to remember the time he fell into the hole, and also remembered that while he was down there, the beings were up above, just looking down at him. He didn't say that they put him there, though, just that they watched as he begged them, without words, for help. It's possible that they did put him there as a way to explain the fact that he was missing when they realized that people were looking for him. Maybe he just can't remember what they did to him before he ended up in the hole because their memory erasure or whatever they do worked better in this incident.
They're convincing you to not talk about it with anyone.
Yeah. He also remembered why he had missing time after the sledding trip when he was about 10 years old. And that one he remembered a lot from. So as he was walking home, he saw a UFO and then was pulled up by it. Quote, I think it
literally
pulled me.
beamed.
I think it pulled me somehow. It's just a feeling of a suddenly exploding, like it was pulling me apart, and then I was inside of something, end quote. So it's like, you know how when you watch, like, I don't know, any space show, and it looks like particle movement.
Yeah, but
like,
they
that
literally
sounds
beamed
like
him
what
up.
they're describing.
Yeah.
Yeah, not like you're floating, like you are, your particles
Coming apart and
Yeah.
going, yeah, I don't like it.
I don't like that either.
I thought that that's what happened when you got beamed up, because sometimes in movies when you get beamed up from a light, it's like you're like,
Yeah, I like it better when they're just like
It's
beaming
like a
up cows and they're
like
just
the
flying
like
cows.
the earrings you got me.
Yeah.
Like flying cow.
Flying
beam up.
cows.
I'm good with that.
So the hypnotist also asked each of the men under hypnosis if they could remember seeing the beings after the Allagash incident. Charlie remembered what he thought was a dream he had in 1989 about the same beings coming into Jack's house when he was staying the night there, but Charlie said after seeing them, he just went back to sleep. They were there for Jack, not him. He's like, sorry, friend. This is about you. This is between you and the aliens. Chuck never had another experience. However, his wife told him that once in the middle of the night, she got creeped out by a bright light, and Chuck sleepily told her to just relax, it's only the aliens.
No longer a comforting statement.
Yeah. Jack continues to have what he thought were dreams about the aliens, which of course turn out to be abductions, and they continue to probe and prod him. This time, it's done with a rod that he says is made of crystal or maybe water, but hard water. They put it in his eye, his nose, his mouth, and it tastes like when you have tinfoil in your mouth. Which is just cringy. Like, goosebumps, you know? Like, ugh.
Am I allowed to leave? Do I have to be here for the rest of this episode?
You have to.
Oh. Okay, as soon as you said it in his eye, I was already out, and then you added like tinfoil, and I'm like, what is that? What is that?
Yeah.
I don't want it. My eyes. I'm not crying if anyone's watching this. I'm just very distressed.
Jim had many more experiences after the Allagash incident, including the dreams that led him to finding Ray Fowler at the UFO symposium. The aliens followed him everywhere. Jim traveled for work, and through hypnosis, he was able to recall them visiting him all over America. Boston, Texas, and even California, always while he was sleeping. After all the visiting, these 4 victims still deal with this reality every day. Chuck had multiple strangers on his property in 1990 that couldn't be explained or had terrible excuses for being there, including an unmarked helicopter hovering overhead. Real Men in Black type. Jack was there with him for some of these experiences. Chuck has since lost contact with the other 3 now. He did an interview in 2016 in which he said he was lying about it all. However, he and all 3 men did do a polygraph in 1993 and passed them. Not that those are super hard to fake, but it would seem hard for all 4 of them to lie and say the same things. Charlie has a lasting pocket-like scoop scar on the inside of his thigh. He believes that he was visited again in 1995 and underwent hypnosis with another ufologist, but another story for another day. He now travels and talks on panels at MUFON events. Jack had a weird growth removed from his leg in 1981 that the doctors couldn't identify and actually sent off for testing at the Air Force, even though Jack had never been in the military. The Air Force doctor said they were just helping out because the state hospitals were backed up. It's not that big of a deal.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. He and his wife Mary are also hearing humming or buzzing sounds randomly everywhere they go. Hey, guess who else does that? Fucking me, dude.
Maybe it's not.
I hear sounds.
Tinnitus. It's aliens.
Okay.
I feel like you need to go to a therapist after this.
I know.
I feel like you need to go talk to somebody.
I'm scared too.
I know. I love you. I'm sorry.
He and Jim did an interview in 2015, and Jim also mentioned hearing the hum. Both twins still get visits at night sometimes, but they feel differently about them. Jim says he wakes up in the middle of the night. He can sometimes feel a malevolent presence. Jack, on the other hand, said, quote, "The last time they visited, they showed me our galaxy and said there was this advanced civilization there who get energy from unconditional love. And he touched me. And I felt love like...
Rape is not unconditional love. I'd just like to make this announcement on our show right now. Not unconditional love. This is abuser talk.
And he touched me, and I felt love like you love your wife or you love your mother, but times a cajillion. And he said to me, you're ready. And I said, what am I ready for? And he said, when the time comes, you will know. And then I woke up and I cried.
Yeah, I would too. 100%.
Well, when he was saying it, he said he cried happy tears. Yeah.
Mine are more deeply uncomfortable.
So Jim is like, I'm being fucking raped and this is terrifying. Jack is like, This is awesome. They're showing
gave them
me
the
love.
full twin test experience. They're like, let's see how they react to two different. They were just fucking doing a twin study.
It's so weird. So that's that. That's the Allagash abduction. I have to tell you about this picture. Okay, so I read this whole book, cover to cover, like the whole thing. I read all of it. All right. On this one random page, there's a picture with a little caption here.
Okay, what is the caption?
And I circled it and wrote, what? Because nowhere in this entire book, cover to cover, nowhere is this photo mentioned.
Yeah.
No. This is a photo of 4 people standing and one person down here on the ground, which I'll show you closer in a second. And it says, the Allagash 4 + 1. From left to right in the back, Charlie Foltz, Chuck Rack, and the Wiener twins. Seated man came out of the woods, stayed for a while, left, and never gave his name. What? What is happening here?
He just came out for a photo op.
Is he an alien? Is he from the future? The past? Who the is he?
Yeah, he does look a lot older than them. Is he
What
like
is
one
happening?
of them in the future and he's just like blipped back to be like, what's up? And then
I don't understand. And it's not, they don't talk about this picture at all in this fucking 347 page book.
Oh, I love that you're just like, what?
I don't know. This is the Allagash Abductions, Undeniable Evidence of Alien Intervention by Raymond E. Fowler. And this is a scary book, but it was an adventure, for sure.
That's just like out of all of the horrors that happened throughout this book, and then they're like, oh yeah, we met this guy.
This random fucking dude. No one knows his name.
I mean,
He just sat in front of us.
Yeah, he was just like, oh, you guys are taking a photo? Okay.
Why?
It's like, you don't want to be rude when you're taking photos, especially when you don't know people, but you want to take photos with like your people too.
Right.
And this was one of those moments where they're like, well, I guess you're just here.
Yeah. And it's 1974, so it's not like they have
we
a
got
really
limited
great digital
photos.
camera.
Yeah, it's not like we got a phone, we can take a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they had that. It was like before the wind and snaps that we had. Good God.
They probably asked that guy to take the picture, and he was like, I got this, and like set it up, and then was like,
He like misunderstood. He's like
right.
setting it up. They're like, what do we say? They don't want to be rude.
But like the other thing is, seated man came out of the woods.
I know.
Stayed for a while. Left. Never gave his name. It's insane.
Oh my
Absolutely
God.
insane.
It's intermission time, folks. I'm your host, Mr. Edward October, and I'm here to share with you a few of my favorite things that are best enjoyed in the early days of spooky season. Pumpkin spice lattes.
Oh, this coffee is criminal.
Honey, you killed the petunias.
Then you admit it. Your coffee really is murder.
No, I'm not a coffee drinker. Yes, Starbucks is evil, and yes, PSLs are a very basic thing to get excited about. Still, they're one of the earliest harbingers of the spooky season. This year, they returned to the ubiquitous chain coffee shops on August 26th. And, cousin, believe me when I tell you that Mrs. October's addiction to this caffeinated, gourd-flavored potable is so acute that PSL Day is held in high regard and celebrated with both ghoulish delight and solemn gratitude. Oktoberfest. This may seem out of left field, but to me, Oktoberfest is as integral to the overall vibe of spooky season as the inevitable annual invasion of the Spirit Halloween locations which steadily, inexorably invade and possess the hollow, corpse-like husks of bygone Office Depot, Toys R Us, Sears, Pier 1, and Party City stores. Oktoberfest, the renowned German beer festival, takes place in mid-September and holds a special place in my heart. Let me explain. Years ago, I hosted a dinner and a movie party that involved driving out after the evening meal to see a Halloween night showing of the German silent film masterpiece Nosferatu on the big screen with live musical accompaniment. Oh, it was quite a night. And what else could I serve for dinner but a menu full of Oktoberfest-inspired German favorites? And every Halloween since then, I've served up a big mess of bratwurst, weisswurst, knockwurst, currywurst, and frankfurters with sauerkraut. I make mine with red cabbage and beer. It is because of this tradition that the rich flavors and funky beer meets cabbage aromas of Oktoberfest will forever remind me of Halloween. But that's just my tradition. Celebrate Oktoberfest in September like a normal person, and you'll have recovered from your hangover just in time for All Hallows Eve.
To be completely safe, save your treats until you get home. Then ask your parents to help you check them carefully to make sure that there's nothing in them or on them that could hurt you. The safest treats are usually candy or gum that come in their own wrappers from the factory. And all candy bars and fruit should be sliced so you can be certain that there is nothing hard or sharp inside that could hurt you. If you're not sure whether something is safe or not, don't take any chances. Throw it away.
By now, of course, you can find Halloween candy by the hundredweight at any greengrocer, five and dime, pharmacy, or big box store. Conventional wisdom states that wise shoppers will wait until November 1st to buy their Halloween candy so that it can be gotten at a deep discount. Horseshit, says I. So you wait until all the trick-or-treating's done and buy your candy at a discount. And then what? Do you buy it just for yourself to eat? If so, valid. Or do you plan on storing it all year long to be handed out next Halloween? Any miserable soul who hatches such a scheme has forgotten the face of his father, as the gunslinger would say. In the first place, the discounts to be had on All Saints' Day aren't all that deep. Sure, there's plenty of unsold fun-sized Snickers, Gummy Nerds, bite-sized Three Musketeers, Pumpkin Patch, Sour Patch Kids, and there's still good Mr. Good bars to be had, but you'll find the markdown to be 25% off at best. If you want to get them for a steal, and if you're considering a scheme like this, of course you want them for a steal, then you'll have to wait until damn near Thanksgiving when the stores are practically begging you to take them off their shelves. And by then you're only getting the dregs of the dregs. The experimental, never-before-tried, first-time-in-stores treats that limped their way to market and were met by money-minding moms with a massive meh, and now you can't give them away. Secondly, if you hang on to this candy, untouched and unspoiled, in the closet under the stairs for a whole year, they won't be fit to hand out to your friends and neighbors. Sure, the best buy date is a year or more away, and candy is shelf-stable enough, but they're not Soviet MREs. Anything that sits in plastic, especially chocolate that's sharing a container with something fruity like Starbursts, will start to taste stale and artificial, maybe even taking on the flavors of whatever's stored next to it. And any trick-or-treating tot or masquerading mummer worth their salt will know that a cheapskate filled their treat sacks. Don't be a geezer, Ebenezer, on Halloween. If you're too tight to pay top dollar for fresh candy, then simply turn off your porch light this Halloween. And if you want to repent for your past misdeeds of handing out candy bought last October, or worse still, last year's leftover Christmas candies, then appease the kiddies and the Halloween spirits alike by handing out full-sized chocolate bars this year.
Frankenberry has strawberry-flavored sweeties.
Count Chocula has chocolate sweeties.
And blueberry with berry-flavored sweeties.
Monster cereals. Like Halloween candy, you'll see boxes of Frankenberry, Boo-Berry, and Count Chocula popping up well before Labor Day. And like Halloween candy, they'll sit on the quick sale discount shelves until the stress and the crawling madness of Christmas shopping has thoroughly taken its hold on the brains of us poor sinners. For this reason, it's a smart play to buy it up after Halloween, when it's cheap. Damn if I'm not a sucker for those cereals. And I eat them all through the spooky season. For the past few years, they've tried to give us something new. One year, they brought back defunct monster cereals Fruit Brute and Yummy Mummy. Last year, they introduced a new cereal, the caramel apple flavored Carmella Creeper. This year, the monster cereals have teamed up with Jim Henson Studios to produce boxes featuring adorable Muppet versions of Count Chocula, Frankenberry, and Boo-Berry. I have already purchased 2 boxes of these cereals, and I plan on lovingly preserving the empty boxes and maybe even framing them because that's the kind of dork I am. Listen to an Octoberpod from last season entitled Satan's Bed and Breakfast if you want to hear me pontificate even more about monster cereals. Chilling, thrilling sounds and virtual jack-o'-lanterns.
Don't ring that bell. You'll be sorry.
One of my oldest and most cherished memories of the Halloween season is of going to the library and checking out a vinyl record set called Disney's Chilling, Thrilling Sounds of a Haunted House, running home to our creaky old house across from the post office, placing the record on the turntable of my portable Dukes of Hazzard record player, and luxuriating in the sounds of thunder, clanking chains, moaning lonesome ghosts, and pissed-off alley cats, while dried leaves and naked tree branches scraped against the window beneath a clear blue sky on a crisp, blustery autumn afternoon. Now, of course, you can find just about any Halloween sound effects record ever produced in digital form, thanks to platforms like YouTube. And there were some real crackerjacks back in the day. Even Martha Stewart, of all people, put out her own Martha Stewart Living branded Halloween sound effects CD. Hallmark had a pretty good one too, as I recall, on cassette tape. Several, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, Target produced a CD and DVD set with a name so generic I can't remember what it was called. In any event, the CD was filled with all the usual sound effects and needle drops of creepy classics like Bach's Toccata and Fugue in C minor, Swan Lake, Funeral March for a Marionette, etc., etc. But the DVD was like a virtual fireplace of ambient Halloween scenes to play in the background during a Halloween party or some such. This DVD had a few scenes: cute jack-o'-lanterns, a scary jack-o'-lantern, a witch's cauldron, and a creepy ticking clock inside a haunted house. Of course, you can get these types of videos by the gross and for free on YouTube. If you're a Shudder subscriber, you can even enjoy their annual Ghoul Log virtual jack-o'-lantern, each one highly themed, directed by a different horror filmmaker, and usually chock full of Easter eggs that monster kids will love. But these types of videos aren't just for Halloween parties. I love to throw one on while reading, writing, or editing a podcast. If it's still September and the leaves are nowhere near close to turning orange, give one of these videos a spin while you're doing the dishes, folding the laundry, or making the bed, to give even the most joyless and mundane tasks a spark of spooky seasonal joy. If you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see a handful of videos entitled Pirate Pumpkins, Retro Jack-o'-lantern Ambience, and Lo-Fi Crypt Hop, which are our approximations of virtual jack-o'-lantern videos. Why not check them out? I'll try to put links to them down in the show notes. Remember at the top of the show when I said that I had a big announcement? It's in regard to this year's Octoberpod Halloween special. Here at the Retro Horror Podcast for Bold Individualists, we pride ourselves with bringing the finest classics of thrilling literature to your ears, narrated by your favorite voices from the world of indie podcasting. Last year, we brought you a visionary new retelling of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Before that, we presented The Spirit Doll, which was our version of The Nutcracker, retold for the Halloween season. This year, we're bringing you a sequel to what is perhaps the ultimate Halloween story, Washington Irving's The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Tune in to Octoberpod on Tuesday, October 28th to hear our Halloween special for 2025, The Brides of Sleepy Hollow. Well, folks, the popcorn popper is all popped out. And now the soda fountain is all out of Shasta, Royal Crown Cola, Tab, and Grape Crush. Intermission time is over and our spooky season launch party is settling down. Let's turn it over to Nikki Young, the serial napper herself, for the conclusion of Octoberpod. Until next time, stay spooky, mes amis.
Hey everyone, my name is Nikki Young, and this is Serial Napper, the true crime podcast for naps. I'm back with another true crime story to lull you to sleep, or perhaps to give you nightmares. Hidden deep within the desolate Chattahoochee National Forest sits the haunting remains of Corpsewood Manor, a hand-built brick mansion with a dark history. Its name, given by its former owner and builder, Dr. Charles Scudder, is ominous. Corpsewood Manor was supposed to be a sanctuary for Dr. Scudder and his partner, far removed from the chaos of their busy city lives. However, in December of 1982, their dreams of living a quiet life nestled away in the isolated woods would turn into a nightmare. The couple and their two beloved dogs would be brutally murdered during a botched robbery attempt. The grisly details of the crime shocked the local community and drew widespread media attention. However, the public narrative, it quickly spiraled into something much darker as whispers about Dr. Scudder's interest in Satanism and sex parties came to light. Even today, as it sits in ruins, Corpsewood Manor has been a source of speculation and rumors about paranormal disturbances and dark entities that refuse to leave. It's said to be cursed, and in turn, anyone who dares to take even a brick from the crumbling mansion risks being damned. So, dim the lights, put your phone down, and listen to the story of Corpsewood Manor, the brutal night of terror experienced by its occupants, and the dark reputation that this location still holds to this day. So let's jump right in. Corpsewood Manor could only be dreamed up by a man just as unique as it is. Dr. Charles Scudder fits the bill. Born on October 6, 1926 in Wisconsin, Charles studied an array of subjects at Oberlin College, including zoology and languages. However, he ultimately decided to focus on pharmacology and earned a PhD in the field. While in college, he met his first wife, a woman named Helen Kilbourne Hazlett. However, it was a very brief marriage, lasting only a few years before they divorced. In the 50s, he would marry his second wife, Bortai Bunting, and together they would have 4 sons. In the 60s, he worked at Loyola University as an associate professor for pharmacology. For those like myself who have no clue what a pharmacologist does, it's a really neat job. They're scientists who research the ways that drugs and chemicals interact with living beings. It's a really important job because they're the ones who research, develop, and test new drugs that can be used to treat diseases. At the university, he not only taught students, but it's rumored that much of Charles' work included experiments using drugs like LSD and how these mind-altering substances affect human behavior. He's been described by some as eccentric, even owning a pet monkey. He walked around with purple hair, not something that you'd typically see a scientist in the 60s rocking, but He was also described as brilliant, polished, and soft-spoken. In his spare time, he loved to play the harp, but it was more than just a hobby. He was incredibly talented, and he was even invited to play with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. Charles lived in a mansion with his wife and children in Chicago. They had a housekeeper named Joseph Odom, and while Joseph was about 12 years younger than Charles, the two became particularly close. It was while Joseph was working for the family that Charles began to explore his sexuality more, realizing that he was actually interested in men. Still, he stayed in his marriage until his children were grown and moved out of the home before divorcing his wife. Now it was just Charles and Joseph living in this mansion in Chicago. They were an unlikely pair. Joseph had achieved a grade 5 education, yet he was more worldly than Charles was. He had experienced much more of life, and Charles found this to be captivating. As time went on, Charles became despondent with how his life and his career was going. He was tired of the mundane routine of living just to work and pay the bills. He was sick of the city, and he didn't want to just waste away, especially because that is exactly what he had seen happen with his neighbor, who basically disintegrated into, quote, an urban ghetto. In 1976, his mother died, and he received an inheritance, which would allow Charles to build the life that he had always wanted, far away from the stresses of the city. On his 50th birthday, he quit his job at the university, and he began looking for a new place to live, somewhere in the country where he and Joseph could call home. They wanted somewhere really private, secluded, surrounded by trees, and they settled on 40 acres of land located in the Chattahoochee National Forest in Georgia. While they built their dream mansion brick by brick, they enjoyed living in a camper on the property with their 2 dogs, Beelzebub and Arseniath. Charles documented the rebuilding of his life by penning an article in the April and May edition of Mother Earth News, where he wrote, quote, "After some soul-searching conversations with Joe, I decided that we really needed to find some place in hilly country with the glamour of 4 seasons, but without super cold winters, with a good supply of pure water and wood for heating and cooking, and most important, with a measure of isolation. After years of enduring the sensory overload of city life, I desperately wanted to be situated where I could neither see nor hear my neighbors." And honestly, yeah, same. The road leading to their new home would be called Dead Horse Road, and Charles would say it was because he had found a dead horse blocking the entrance when they first arrived at the property. I personally would have probably seen this as a bad omen and packed up and left. However, they did not. Actually, they kind of leaned into how eerie the property was. It was completely surrounded by trees that completely silenced any outside sound. But in the autumn, those same trees looked hauntingly bare. Charles felt like it was the perfect location to build his dream home, suitably named CORPSEWOOD Manor. There was no running water or electricity at the property. They were basically living off the grid before it was cool. But this didn't stop the couple from hand-building their odd-looking house, which looked like a mini castle. Charles and Joseph constructed CORPSEWOOD Manor by hand, laying 45,000 bricks, digging trenches, installing a drainage system, and an outhouse. During the first year, they built the first floor of the home, which allowed them to move out of their camper. This included a kitchen, a dining room, and a living room, so it wasn't anything crazy. During the second year, they built the second floor, which included 2 bedrooms, which was reachable by a circular stairwell. They installed stained glass, some featuring human skulls, and one which featured an image of a recognizable figure in the Church of Satan, a prophet called Baphomet. You've likely seen depictions of Baphomet before. He has the head of a goat, and he has a torch between his horns. He also has a pentagram on his forehead. He's got wings, and he's giving a 2-finger salute. 2 fingers on the right hand point up, and 2 on the left hand point down, meaning as above, so below. Charles was an official member of the Church of Satan. It's important to note here that those who are a part of the Church of Satan, they don't worship Satan. They're not Satanists. They don't worship Satan or any other kind of god. They're focused more on their own desires. And Charles really related to those beliefs, which is why he built Corpsewood Manor in the first place. The front of the home was adorned by a pink gargoyle, one of the only things that he brought with him from his old mansion in Chicago. It also had bright red doors over the gazebo. He loved Gothic design, so the whole manor was filled with occult items. There were 4 chimneys that stuck out of the manor, with each decorated with a pentacle. He also had several paintings that I guess you could say are kind of dark, including a portrait of himself where he was bound and bloody with what appeared to be bullet holes in his head. And this will become important in a little bit. It's rumored that when he left Loyola University, he took with him 2 human skulls, which he also used as decoration at Corpsewood Manor. And that's not all he took. It's alleged that he stole around 1,200 doses of LSD, which he would use during drug-fueled sex parties at the manor, but we're not quite there yet.
I found that it was very different from anything I'd ever seen. It had the medieval look of a fortress. Some of the objects in the rooms, such as a human skull on the desk, miniature skulls across the professor's bed, the satanic pentacle, the skull window in one of the walls, the gargoyle-shaped mirror in the professor's bedroom, then the big gargoyle out front over the gazebo, the gargoyle faces, and the pentacles on the chimneys and on the outbuildings. Made me know, and some of the books that was in the bookcase all pointed to satanic worship and to homosexual acts, which was all over the house and in the chicken house or playroom.
Beside the brick home, Charles built a chemical outhouse, a well, a lake, and several outbuildings, including a 3-story chicken coop. Now, this was not your ordinary chicken coop. The first floor had what you might imagine, chickens and some food storage. The second floor was for canned goods, but it's also alleged this is where Charles kept some of his porn. The third floor, only accessible by a ladder, was called the Pink Room, and a whole lot of things went down in the Pink Room. This room was also known as their pleasure chamber, and this is where they would, I guess you could say, entertain guests. The Pink Room had pink curtains and linen. There were mattresses, sex toys, candles, and a guest book of names who had visited the Pink Room and what kind of things they enjoyed. As you can imagine, these 2 men moving into this small southern town and then building this strange brick building, it caught a lot of attention. People were very curious about what was happening deep in the forest at this property. So they had strangers pulling up, trying to catch a glimpse all the time. It really wasn't safe, especially for 2 gay men living together in the 70s in the South. At the entrance of their property, they put up a wooden sign that read, "Beware of the Thing." Some townfolk believed that this meant they had summoned a demon to patrol their property, but the Thing was more likely one of their large guard dogs, Beelzebub and Arseniath. Charles and Joseph tried to make friends with the townspeople, and generally they were very much liked. They would go into town a couple of times a month, and here they would often invite guests over to Corpsewood Manor for dinner and drinks. Joseph enjoyed cooking, while Charles enjoyed pouring glasses of their homemade wine. Sometimes after dinner, the party would continue over in the Pink Room, where there was more wine, drugs, and a judgment-free zone for people to live out their sexual fantasies. What happened in the Pink Room stayed in the Pink Room. It's pretty easy to see how rumors began to swirl about the 2 gay Satanists who hosted sex parties at their castle in the forest. How much of the rumors were true is difficult to say. Besides the townfolk who would come by out of pure curiosity, some would stop by to ask for permission to hunt on the property that surrounded Corpsewood Manor. One of these hunters was a 17-year-old boy named Avery Brock. Avery had a pretty difficult upbringing. He had been kicked out of his parents' home at a pretty early age, and he was now living in a trailer with a much older roommate, 30-year-old Tony West, who was a felon and a bad influence. I read different stories about Avery's relationship with Charles and Joseph. Some sources say that they were only acquaintances because Avery was given permission to hunt on the land, while other sources say that the young boy would join them in the pink room. Either way, the lifestyle that the two men led had Avery believing that they were much more wealthy than they were. They had this huge brick castle that was just filled with a ton of furniture and cool statues and art. Truthfully, all of Charles' money was tied up in the property. Beyond that, he didn't have much. But to this young boy looking around at the castle-like building, well, he thought that they had to be really rich. So Avery told his roommate, Tony, all about the two men and their lavish lifestyle, and the two came up with a plan to rob them. Corpsewood Manor was located in an isolated location, meaning no one would hear the men calling out for help. However, they did also own two very large mastiffs, so if they wanted to rob these guys, they would likely need weapons. On December 12, 1982, Avery and Tony picked up a set of rifles from Avery's mother's house, telling her that they were going to be going rabbit hunting. Then they went and picked up two other teenagers, Joey Wells and Teresa Hudgens, who were both unaware of the plan that was about to play out. They all made their way over to Corpsewood Manor, saying that they were going to be going to this devil-worshipping house. And they huffed something that they called Toodaloo, which is a homemade combination of alcohol, paint thinner, and glue. It was something popular for the kids at the time to sniff and get high for cheap. When they arrived at the property, the group of teens shared a cigarette with Charles, and then they were invited up to the pink room for a drink. They all sat around chatting for a bit and drinking some homemade wine when Avery said that he needed to go grab more Toodaloo from the car. Instead, he grabbed his rifle from the trunk. When Avery returned to the pink room, gun in hand, he pointed it straight at Charles, and Charles, well, he thought it was a joke and said, "Bang, bang." But it wasn't a joke. Avery and Tony tied him up. They put a gag in his mouth, and they held him at knife point. They demanded that he hand over his money. But little did Avery know, there was no money. Charles and Joseph lived off of around $200 a month. Everything else had been put directly into building the house. They asked Charles who was at home in the main building, and he told them that Joseph and their two dogs were over there. While Charles begged to be let go because he didn't have any cash to give them, Avery decided to step things up a notch. He climbed down the ladder from the pink room and he walked into Corpsewood Manor, where he encountered Joseph and the two dogs. He began firing his gun at all three of them, killing them. Gunshots rang out in the normally dead silent forest. Avery returned to the pink room, and everyone in that room knew what had just happened. Tony then forced Charles down the ladder and over to the main house, where he was faced with the sight of his dead partner and his two beloved dogs. He once again demanded money from Charles. Knowing that he couldn't provide it, Charles said his last words, quote, "I asked for this," and then he tried to pull away. He was shot 5 times in the head, and he fell dead to the floor. Corpsewood Manor had eerily lived up to its name that night. Avery and Tony quickly took anything that looked valuable that they were able to carry. It really wasn't much, maybe a few coins, some jewelry, and some gold decorative items. They tried to steal Charles's beloved golden harp, but it wouldn't fit in his Jeep, which they were now going to be using as a getaway car because the car that they brought there, it wasn't starting. The Jeep was not inconspicuous. It was quite unique, especially because it had white pentacles painted on its doors. While they used it to drive off the property to get away from the crime scene, the two men knew that they would have to find another vehicle soon. Avery and Tony threatened the other two teens that they would kill them if they had told anyone. Then they dropped them off at the trailer, and the two men tried to flee to Mexico. Well, at least that was the plan. They went back and forth between Mexico and Europe. Either way, they didn't get very far. The two men pulled the Jeep over at a rest stop just outside Vicksburg, Mississippi. They had seen a man sitting in the front seat of a Toyota, which they had planned to steal. The man was a 26-year-old Navy lieutenant named Kirby Key Phelps. The plan was going to be to tie him to a tree while they made off with his vehicle. So they forced him out of the car at gunpoint and walked him over to a tree. Then Avery began to unload the Jeep into the Toyota when suddenly he heard gunshots ring out. Tony had shot the young man and had killed him. They both then took off in the Toyota, hoping that no one had seen or heard anything. Meanwhile, days after Charles and Joseph's brutal slaying at Corpsewood Manor, a friend who had stopped by would discover their bodies. What's truly shocking is the way that Charles's body was found. It looked just like the portrait of himself that he had hanging up in his house. He had a painting done not too long before he was murdered. It showed him with a gag in his mouth, bleeding from bullet holes to his head. So, had he predicted his own murder? When the police arrived on scene, they found the walls stained with blood. All of the beautiful furniture had been overturned and thrown about. There were bullet casings left all over the floor. The police weren't really sure what to make of Corpsewood Manor. It was nothing like they had ever seen before. The unusual design of this large brick castle-like building, the satanic statues and stained glass, the human skulls, and then the pink room above the chicken coop. When details of this double homicide got out, it caused a media frenzy. Charles and Joseph were labeled the slain homosexual devil worshippers, and during a time of satanic panic in a deeply religious southern state, it was difficult to discern what was true and what was just made up out of fear. The victims were basically re-victimized all over again on every newspaper. By this time, Avery and Tony had a falling out, and they were now traveling alone. They didn't make it anywhere near Mexico or Europe. Avery, who was hitchhiking his way across the country, he called his mother, and that's when he learned that a warrant had been put out for his arrest for the murders.
Avery said he went down to the house, went down first to the car, and he said to check and see if the rifle was there. And then they got the rifle. He got the rifle out of the car and went down to the house where Odom was supposed to have been the housekeeper and the two dogs. He said he took the gun because he was afraid of the dogs, afraid they were loose, and he didn't want them to get a hold of him. And he said at the time that he was going down there, that he could feel, he could see different flashes in his eyes. And he said when he got there that it looked like that Odom had a gun, was getting a gun, and he thought that Odom was going to shoot him. And he told me, the way he told me, that he shot the dogs, and he didn't know where he hit Odom or not. And then later on, he said he just didn't know where he did or where he didn't. Mm-hmm. But the law, down there said he did. So I don't really know. I don't believe he did.
He knew the gig was up. It was only a matter of time now until he was caught. So he walked into a gas station and he told the attendant who he was and what he had done. The attendant called the police swarmed the gas station, and Avery was arrested. As for Tony, he was running out of money and stamina. When he had heard that Avery was arrested, he too decided that it was just a matter of time. He walked into a police station and he turned himself in the day before Christmas. When the double homicide of Dr. Charles Scudder and Joseph Odom went to court, there were a lot of allegations made by both defendants. Avery Brock, he admitted to killing Joseph Odom, and he was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms. At least he was honest about what he had done. However, Tony West, he pleaded innocent to the charges of murdering Charles Scudder. At first, he argued that they weren't at Corpse Manor to steal anything at all. It was actually a revenge plot. because Charles had previously forced Avery to perform oral sex on him in the pink room. Then he argued that the two men, they were hallucinating at the time of the killings because Charles had allegedly spiked their wine with LSD. Now, it should be noted that while Charles did enjoy spiking his own drinks with LSD sometimes, there were no traces of LSD found in the wine at the crime scene. Finally, Tony's attorney tried to argue that the couple had actually bewitched his client. Tony would testify, quote, "All I can say is they were devils, and I killed them. That's how I feel about it." While it was certainly a sensationalized statement, the jury wasn't buying any of it, and they found him guilty. Tony was sentenced to death. However, he won an appeal, and he was given life in prison in exchange for a guilty plea. Both men still sit behind bars today, and it's likely that they will both die in prison. With a name like CORPSEWOOD, it's easy to see why, even after its occupants had been murdered and were dead, people continued to visit the eerie structure on the property. Just months after the murders, the house also became a victim to arson. The ruins of this unique brick castle-like manor are now privately owned and overgrown by weeds, but much of it does still stand. Many of the locals refer to the area as Devil Worshippers Mountain, and they believe that Charles had plans to turn the property into a satanic church. Rumors still swirl about animal sacrifices and blood drinking that happened at Corpsewood Manor. Some say that the place is still incredibly haunted, and that if you listen closely, you might hear the sound of the dogs barking or the ring of a gunshot. Others believe that the property is cursed, and if you take anything, something even as small as a brick, you too will be cursed. Despite the couple's well-regarded status among those who knew them, the shadows of that brutal night still loom over the forest, casting a dark and eerie reputation on Corpsewood Manor, Dr. Charles Scudder's dream home and final resting place. That's it for me tonight. Until next time, sweet dreams, stay kind, especially in the comments. Bye.
Stick around after the credits for a brief word from some of our fellow indie podcasters, creators, and friends. There may even be some bloopers, outtakes, and bonus content as well.
Twisted and Uncorked is a proud member of Weirding Way Media, hosted and produced by Sierra Zorn and Alicia Watson. If you like the show, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you are listening now. You can check out all things Twisted on our website, twistedanduncorked.com.
You can find us on Facebook, Threads, and Instagram at Witches Talking Tarot.
And you can find us on the X at Classiest Witches because we are the classiest witches you know.
Thanks for sitting with us for a spell.
If you want to reach out, you can find me on Facebook at Serial Napper. You can find my audio on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. I post all of my episodes in video format over on YouTube. I'm over on X, formerly known as Twitter, at serial_napper, and I post things on TikTok, Serial Napper Nick, and that's all one word.
You have been listening to Octoberpod. Octoberpod is produced, edited, and directed by Edward October. The series co-producers are M.J. McAdams and Amber Jordan. Logo and banner graphics by Jessica Good. Edward October character design by Nick Calavera. Select still photography courtesy of unsplash.com. Select music cues by Dr. Dreamchip and various other stock music and sound effects courtesy of freesound.org. Music from Bigfoot Apocalypse and Thorax, theme from Octoberpod, composed by Nico Vitezi. All other images, music, and FX cues, except where noted, are sourced from within the public domain. Follow us on YouTube at Octoberpod Home Video, on Instagram, and the app I still call Twitter at Octoberpod VHS, and on TikTok and Blue Sky at Octoberpod. Or find us and all of our links on the World Wide Web at octoberpodvhs.com. For business inquiries or story submissions, email octoberpod@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this program, we'd be very pleased if you told your friends about us. And while you're at it, write us a 5-star or equivalent review wherever you're listening. The man who spoke to you was Mr. Edward October.
South Africa, a country whose spectacular beauty and dynamic people are known the world over. But there's another side to our country. and one that is rarely discussed in the detail it deserves. Join me, Nicole Engelbrecht, on True Crime South Africa, South Africa's first victim-focused true crime podcast, as we go beyond the headlines, focus on the victims, and explore some of South Africa's most heinous violent crimes. True Crime South Africa is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you looking for a new podcast to listen to? Why not try Tis Yourself? Hosted by me, Nicola Barton, I interview your favourite TV stars from shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Friends, The OC, Scrubs, EastEnders, and many, many more. The likes of Tate Donovan told me about dating Jennifer Aniston, or what Matthew Perry was like on set, and you'll want to hear what Dan Florrick had to say about SVU. So come find Tis Yourself. It is the best new podcast you've never heard of.
The Social Detective is an investigative podcast that assists in the solving of cases in Kansas and the surrounding states. We utilize our relationships with law enforcement agencies, media outlets, family members, and loved ones of the victims by creating social media platforms for the murdered and the missing. On our podcast, we refuse to sensationalize cases to gain listeners. This podcast will always be a safe space for the families of the victims. So come join us at The Social Detective.
If YouTube watchers, if my camera changed, I apologize. I kicked my desk and my webcam went awry. This is as close as I'm gonna get it.
So add this in. I'm Edward October. I'm Edward October. Now we go into the December.
I already don't like the name. Just for
well, Allagash is a place in Maine.
Well,
just so you know.
It's an unfortunate name for the disturbing things we are talking about. Okay,
it is a little bit gash.
Like
yeah.
Ugh.
Candy, 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 and as Garfield would say,
rode one of the boat plane things that like take you. You know, it's like a boat. I mean, it's a plane, but it lands on the water. I don't know what it's called. Pontoon, something. Anyway, over
like
to the pond.
Pontoon is like a party boat.
Yeah,
like
that's what I thought too.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
but they said something. Okay, whatever. Y'all know what it looks like.
And we might want to punctuate each of these with some kind of film clip or some shit. I don't know.
Had they gotten over
there's
cats
no
being
proof for that. To be clear, there's no proof for that. That's just
I'm just saying, like, I do not
possibility.
think that anybody without some kind of surgical background would be able, in the darkness, so quickly without getting caught. But they would also have to be able to blend in. Although, did a lot of rich guys come and get a little something down in East End? I don't really know.
I really think I like, first of all, I just had a disgusting thought and I hate it because of this conversation, because I just thought, what does a cat uterus look like versus a human uterus? Because if they're practicing on animals, but I don't want to know. Is that a psychotic thought? Because, like, I'm not trying to be crazy. It's just like the difference in an animal uterus versus a human uterus. If you're dissecting an animal, not just a cat, but a pig. Yeah. Again, I think pig would probably be the closest too. But it's not the exact same. I don't really want to, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I get what you're saying. I'm just like, I'm over here like...
I think the idea that it's a doctor doing it to see what's wrong with his wife and why she's infertile is probably the most likely theory that I lean toward.
One year, they brought back defunct monster cereals Fruit Brute, and Yummy Mummy. One year they brought back defunct monster cereals Fruit.
How does one become a ufologist? Like, how do I apply for this job and am qualified? You know?
You gotta go talk to the Blink-182 guy.
Travis Smith. All right, noted. Will do. I'll have his people call my people.
Yeah, exactly.
Each year you'd seen Martha. Each year you'd seen Martha. Each year you'd see Martha on the cover, all dolled up in her latest cosplay for All Hallows. None of these disguises, however, could mask her massive ego.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I would also just like to point out that seaplanes are what we were looking for. The word.
It's just called a seaplane?
Seaplane.
That's lame. That's super lame. Wow. Okay. Seaplane.
I really felt like I needed to correct us before somebody yelled. Also, I called the drummer from Blink-182 Travis Smith at the beginning of this. His name is Travis Barker. I feel as though I needed to protect us. So
I don't think Travis Barker is the
You don't think
UFO one, though.
You don't think so?
I don't think it's Travis
There's
Barker.
only
I
one
know
Travis in Blink-182.
I don't know if it's a Travis.
It's the drummer, though, right?
No, I don't think it is. Isn't Travis Barker the one that married the Kardashian? That's not the UFO guy.
Well, then why are you talking about Blink-182?
Because, hang on, let me see which one it is. Blink-182 UFO. Tom DeLonge.
Oh, it's not the drummer. Okay.
It's not the drummer.
Okay. Okay. That's even better. Okay.
I know.
I like
Travis
that.
Barker can't be trusted. He's with the Kardashian.
Well, that's what I was like. That's interesting. Like, I guess you can have a wide range of interests.
Not that wide. Kardashians and UFOs. Come on.
Each year you'd see Martha all dolled up in her latest cosplay for All Hallows. None of these disguises could hide her massive. None of these disguises could mask her massive ego.
He said they kept touching his penis like they wanted him to get an erection and give a sperm sample, but he was too grossed out.
Yeah.
Eventually he told them, or thought toward them, he can just do it himself. And he did. He gave them a sperm sample. So remember, Jim...
So he it in front of aliens, is what you're telling me.
He did.
Okay.
Right into a test tube.
Oh, I mean, that's really the lesser of the two evils in that situation.
Yeah. Because if it feels like bugs, how can you...
Every time you say like bugs, it's like a visceral reaction in my body. Like, I don't know how you got through this book. I literally feel like I'm going to vomit every time you say those words.
Yeah.
But a menu full of Octoberfest. I keep trying to say Octoberpod instead of Oktoberfest. Motherfucker.
For those that have zero idea what I'm talking about, Boo Boo is the Bushman, and I know that's offensive of a term that Sierra doesn't like when I use it, that we run into when we've gone camping at Pacific Beach. He always gives us a beer. He always offers us his newspaper. He's a very nice man. We didn't see him last year. I hope he's okay. But what the fuck?
Yeah, what the fuck?
I'm really glad you brought that up at the end as a little palate cleanser, but also I'm so concerned. I'm going to be thinking about this man for millennia.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, who was he? Maybe he was one of them. Maybe he was like testing them. Maybe he was like, is this person cool? Like, are they cool enough to have their penises examined with a light? Also, like, no one wants to see that up close, okay? No one.
Yeah. So one thing that I probably shouldn't say, because I don't know if this is considered like, what's the word where you are lying about somebody?
Oh, yeah.
Like something with an L or something?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I know what you're trying to say and I can't get it off my mouth.
Yeah. So Chuck Rack is
Am I okay?
You know, he says that he made it all up. It's like, this never happened. I made it all up. And the other guys were like, well, this happened all this time. And when the time came, he wanted a book deal or something. And they were like, no, we're not making money off of this. He's like, fine, then I'm going to tell them all it was fake. And so they're not friends anymore because he did that. He told everyone, oh, I just made it up. It's not real. But like, it's kind of hard to make that up. But anyway, it doesn't matter. That was in 2016 and it happened in 76. So like he decided, that much later that he was going to say it was fake. Anyway, the author called him
saying
a macho
it's fake
man.
doesn't take your trauma away, sir.
Yeah, the author called him macho man, I'm thinking maybe he just exaggerated some of the things, because when he started talking about his penis stuff, it seemed like he was
It
like
was much more sexually
braggy.
aggressive. Yeah.
Well, he was like, they looked at it closer. They just shined more light on it. Like,
were they having
what
a
are
hard
you
time
trying
finding
to?
it?
Oh.
Sorry, I didn't say that. I'll take that out.
But yeah, he just seemed to be like, yeah, they really wanted to know what my penis looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Who
Genuine
knows?
fear is felt though, for sure, in all of
Yeah.
this. Like,
Oh,
this-
yeah.
ugh, I'm stressed.
Bum 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 bum.